All right, hello 14ers. Welcome back, brothers and sisters, to Ministry Revealed. It is February 5th, 2020. Who would have thought we'd ever get this far, right? Well, we are going to cover some things today. We are going to do some discussion, or we're going to have some discussions on the 40 days and a couple of viewpoints that we were in over in the forum. I'm going to show you guys a couple of other new things. We're going to talk about some prophetic words that were given. We're going to tie in a little bit of this Bob Jones word that he gave for the Kansas City Chiefs. Whether some people like it and some people don't, I'm showing it for a reason. It really didn't have anything to do with the Chiefs, guys. It had to do with a prophetic marker. And so I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you some of these things, in particular, words that he actually said, and a specific word that he said in that, what he had said. So, and how that is going to lead us into something we've been teaching here for a long time, about what we know comes after the 40 days. So guys, all of this is going to kind of tie in together. And it's not going to be a video that this is the 40 days, all right? This is when it's starting now. You know, I said it in the last video, I think the live show we did with Peter. Guys, we're here. And I'm going to show you some of those things as well, that just, how much more do we need? You know, everything has shown. We look at the count, we look at everything. All of these revelations that have come here, of which I'm going to touch on a couple of these things as we go into certain points, that you're going to see that when I started talking about them, when I realized that we started talking on these things, I think the one I looked at, which we'll touch on a little later, it was in May of 2018, I think. Maybe, no, 2019, I think it is. We'll see when we get there. Maybe it was 18, but I think it was 19. And how it, back then, I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, Lord, how on earth am I going to tell people that not only does Messiah come back on Mount Zion first, but the Lord God comes too? That his presence will be there as well? I mean, come on. And then there's still trumpets, and I'm trying to explain to people the 14 years, and then it's really 13 at the end of 13, and he fulfills the 14th, and that's the covenant that's renewed at the, I mean, guys, it keeps going and going. You see, even the whole thing with Bob Jones, in that prophecy with the Chiefs, I didn't care that it was going to be the Chiefs that won the Super Bowl. You know, there's people that say, oh, it was a 50-50. No, it wasn't. They had to get there after 50 years, and it landed in the 70th year. For that prophecy to make any sense in what we have been revealed in the understanding. And what he said, that the words he said, not only what he said about that, but other words that he said that I'll show like 3 or 4 minutes of, that he said about that time equals the time of the Chiefs. It's amazing. And we've talked about Bob Jones before. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on Bob Jones. We're going to be in a bunch of areas, but it's going to be a piece that Bob Jones, because of certain things that he said and what he said about when 2020 comes, that we'll do that 3 or 4 minute piece. When we put all these things together, knowing what we understand here at Ministry Revealed, well, I mean, the story just gets more and more clear, or more and more confirmed. We don't need to be in a panic, guys. Yeah, we're going to look at some things for 40 days and try to understand it a bit more clearly if we can. But we're no longer in a panic, guys, please. Don't be in a panic. Don't be selling your house and selling everything you have unless the Lord has come and visited you and spoke to you and told you these things. Don't go doing those things. He knows people have to work. You can still work. And while you're working, give thanks to the Lord along the way. Pause throughout your day and think about them. Give them thanks for when you have that sip of water, or you're getting that coffee, or you're buying lunch, and you give them thanks for the money to be able to pay for it. You see, just remember them throughout your day. Give them thanks throughout your day. You don't have to quit your job unless he tells you, but that will be a direct thing, and there will be no mistaking it. Okay? Guys, we're here. So please understand we're here. Is it today? Well, apparently not yet. But the things that we've been watching for, and the one thing, this peace deal, guys, that was one thing that the whole world of end-time Christian faith was looking for, and almost nobody's talking about it. Guys, that was what we were looking for. Now we're just waiting for the suddenly, right? We're waiting for that time to begin. Okay, so we're going to go into this in a whole bunch of cool things today, or awesome things, and we're just going to dig a little bit deeper, and we're going to see these other pieces that connect. It's awesome, guys. It's so awesome. And let me share this with you. You'll notice there's a little Facebook icon here now. Ta-da! Facebook, or many of you know Uncle Jimmy. You see him in the comments. This isn't the same Jimmy that does our website. See our website? All of you know our website, ministryrevealed.com. And we have, in the website, we have a link to a forum. And we've got a forum there with, 300 and some odd people in there now. And that was set up by Jimmy Luttrell, who's our brother out in Montreal, Canada. I'm in Calgary, Canada. And this one, the Jimmy who set up Facebook for us is Uncle Jimmy. And he's really good at setting all that stuff. And I just said, yeah, brother, you go for it. And so he went and set that up. So I'm going to click on it to show you guys. There it is. So right now, see, pretty cool, hey? So right now, I don't have Facebook, guys. So you can see where it's telling me to log in and everything. I don't have Facebook. So I'll debate how I'm going to deal with this and go in with the comments and do that stuff. So I will deal with it, all right? And yeah, so he's uploading all the videos there and everything else. So he's doing that right now. I just got a text from him saying that he's uploading right now. They're uploading, I think, 50 videos or something like that right now. So exciting stuff. So thank you, Uncle Jimmy. I think it's Jim Hoon. Sorry if I pronounce it wrong, Jimmy. But yeah, you know him from Uncle Jimmy. So I just wanted to give a shout out. Thanks for Uncle Jimmy as well. And of course, our brother Jimmy, who's always uploading our videos and helping me out with all those things and keeping the website fresh and awesome. So thanks to our brother Jimmy as well. From there, guys, I'm going to do a shout out again because the ministry still needs support. We're still here. All right. I don't bring it up often, and I don't bring it up because it's uncomfortable. But this is all I do. I do this full time to share it with the world as best we can. And we've got the GoFundMe page here, and we've got the PayPal link here. They're also in the links under the videos. And for those that don't want to, or say, oh, what do you need it for if it's almost over? Fine. You don't have to share. I mean, you don't have to support it. Just pray, and those that don't have the ability to, man, just pray for us. We're praying for you every day as well. We need those prayers. We've recently heard of some more intense things coming at the ministry, and prayers are absolutely 100% necessary to protect and watch over us, all right? So we appreciate that. And those who can share, look, until the time comes, the ministry still needs to keep going. I still need to keep putting these words out and keep the power on and everything else, all right? So we really appreciate it, and we thank you for that ahead of time, and I will give you thank you notes as well, as I always do. And so now with that, I was thinking maybe Jimmy, our Jimmy for the website, can add this quote maybe somewhere on the homepage. I just love this, man. I can't remember if I spoke about it in the last video, or if it's because I was talking to somebody, or I posted it on the forum, or whatever it was, but this quote from Isaac Newton, because Isaac Newton was somebody who studied end times a lot, and in particular Daniel. And he understood that the two number counts had to be separate counts. And we've proven that it wasn't just something to all add together, but they were two separate portions of time that could be added together as a whole, but that they were two separate portions of time. And we've revealed that with the understanding that's been revealed here of Daniel chapter 9. All right, but I love this quote that he said. He said, about the time of the end, a body of men and women will be raised up who will turn their attention to the prophecies and insist upon their literal interpretation in the midst of much clamor and opposition. Sound familiar, right? So again, this is us, guys. Am I saying this is only Ministry Revealed and all those involved here in Ministry Revealed? No. There's certainly others around the world. But I've been talking about this with some people recently. The confusion that if people don't have the solid ground, if they're studying eschatology, now understand, Ministry Revealed is the revealing of end time understanding. That's what's going on here. We're not bringing people to the ministry isn't about bringing people so much to Christ. Now there's some that will come to it, and those that will be refreshed and renewed from within the church who have been frustrated, who have been praying and saying, Lord, help me to understand. And these people are being led to Ministry Revealed and say, oh my goodness, people take days off of work. When they come across Ministry Revealed, they take days off of work because it caught their attention. They start studying it. Their jaw hits the floor. And they just stay home. They call in and they say, taking the day off. And they're watching videos and they're studying them because the Spirit has led them. The Spirit has touched them and said, here you go. I had a great story yesterday. I'm not going to name the names, but I was on the phone yesterday with a brother who told me the story of how he came across Ministry Revealed. And this brother, there's some intense things going on in his life that had gone on in his life spiritually. And he's powerful. He's strong. And he was saying that he had been frustrated as well. He said, Lord, he said, that's it. He said, after 8 years, he said, I'm shutting my laptop off. I'm not turning it back on to go watch YouTube videos or seek these things. I'm not doing any of this stuff anymore until you show me. I'm tired of it. Right? He's tired. He said he was tired of the 7 years that wasn't making sense. He was tired about the once saved, always saved, when throughout scripture, you can see there's the other side that's clearly not about it's once for all. And so he was frustrated by these things. And he said, that's it. And so for 3 days, he never turned on his computer. Doesn't have a phone or TV or any of that stuff. Never turned on his computer. And then suddenly, just a few months back, he said, okay, fine. He says, okay, Lord. He said a prayer over it. This guy goes in his prayer closet. He seeks the Lord, man. It was really a great talk. And he opened up his laptop and he prayed over it and he said, Lord, show me, please, Lord, your will, show me where I can get some truth. And he said he opened up his laptop. He turned on his laptop. It booted up. And when it booted up, his browser opened automatically. YouTube opened automatically. And the screen, the top 4 videos were Ministry Revealed. I was like, what? I was telling my wife and my daughter over dinner last night, man. We were just like, whoa. That was awesome. And so he sees 14 years and he's like, Lord, seriously, is this for real? Not another one with his own way of thinking these things. He says, Lord. And so what he does, he shuts the computer off again. He opens it back up, turns it on, powers it up. The browser opens, YouTube opens, and 3, I think, videos this time pop up. And he said, all right, Lord, if this is from you, I'll watch it. And he said, he heard the Spirit say, now pay attention. I was like, man. See, those things, guys, they give encouragement to me as well. You know, I've heard many stories similar to that and others that just give such, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I have the understanding, but I don't have audibles. I don't have dreams or visions or any of that. But I have understanding. And what better way to speak to somebody than giving them understanding of his words? You see? And so when I hear those types of stories, man, am I ever encouraged. I know it encourages them because then they tell me the stories if they just start watching, note-taking, video after video. You see, guys, because something fantastic is happening here. This body of throughout ministry revealed, male and female. We're one. We're seeking in the midst of much clamor and opposition coming against us. Yes, more than just the verbal ones that we're hearing. All right? Much more than that. So this is why not only the financial support until it's time to go, but also the prayer support by all. All right? Because there's a lot of this going on right now. Okay? So guys, I wanted to share that with you. Maybe Jimmy, brother, not Uncle Jimmy, Jimmy Luttrell, my brother from another mother over in Montreal. Maybe he can add that to the website. I'll leave that up to him when he has time and if he can find a place for it. But I wanted to share that with you guys because it was awesome. All right, it was an awesome discussion. So an awesome share. Next, I want to show you this. This was shared with me by another brother of ours you've heard me talk about, Charles. He sent me this video of Abbas. You can see this. This wasn't long ago. This was from January 31st. When Abbas was all ticked off with the peace plan. All right, this peace plan that happened to come in the time frame we were talking about, there it was. And for some strange reason, President Trump tells them they got 42 days to start making it happen. Kind of strange. Which landed on March 10th, the end of it, by the way. And he sent me this video because Abbas, he said, that's it. He says, not only is he saying no, 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 he's severing ties, he said, with Israel and with America, with whether it be military or support or whatever it was. He was cutting ties. But the reason I'm showing this to you is because I want you to pay attention to something he says, which is why Charles shared this with me, all right? We'll read it here. It was awesome. When Charles saw it, he said, I got to send this to him. Watch this. So, and negotiations led by the quartet. So what he's getting at, so in case you don't see it all, what he's saying is, I understand America is powerful. I understand I can't ignore America. He says, but why is America the only one giving us this peace deal? We have a quartet of nations that I would be more than happy if we all came together and we had this quartet with America there as well for the 5 and all put something together that we can agree on and negotiate back and forth on. Why does it have to be America only? And this is what he's going on and on about. But then listen to what he says. Or I guess in this case, read unless you can understand the language.
أنا بعرف وأنا منطقي مع نفسي إنه أمريكا ما بقدر أتجاهلها، لكن أمريكا مش هي كل العالم. لا، في رباعية دولية، أنا بقبل رباعية دولية و5 دول معها بقبل. ويتفضلوا فاوضوا حطوا أي قرار من قرارات مجلس الأمن على الطاولة ونحن مستعدون لكي نفاوض على هذا الأساس. أما على أساس صفقة ترامب أو غير ترامب ما بكرة يبقى يطلع لنا واحد تاني.
See, but on the basis of Trump's deal, whether it's Trump's deal or tomorrow someone else might show up.
ما بنعرف. يعني
I don't know. Mr. Trump, if something happens, are you ready for this? Mr. Trump, if something happens and he does not complete his term, whoa, did I read that right? And he does not complete his term, someone else will come. And he will say the same thing. Was that do we call that a Freudian slip? What would we call this? Okay, so if Trump does not complete his term and someone else comes in, then they might propose the same one, or, someone else does it. So we want it by the quartet, and that's what he's going on and on about. But what did he say? He said, and he does not, what if Trump does not complete his first term or complete his term? Do you remember this conversation we've had? See this video from over a year ago? This video is from December 3rd, 2018. Okay, like 14 or so months ago. Judgment has been determined. He will not complete his first term. Okay, Trump, we called it a judgment has been determined. The time, what was it? The time has been aborted, something along those lines. And it had to do with something that I was saying already for about 7 or 8 months. And then I did a video here in December of 2018 with what the prophet Sooooo had said. And we talked about it many times. You guys can go watch this video. But it was about the fact that knowing the season and time we were in, and back then in 2018, we thought, like everybody else did, that the 70th year was May 14th. You see, it wasn't until later that we came into a greater understanding. And we're going to talk on some of those things too, to tie into this 40-day understanding and so forth. And so back then, I was saying that Trump would not complete his first term because we know the 70th year, as this 70th year comes to an end, it will be in Trump's first term and he won't complete it. Well, even though it's this year in 2020, nothing has changed. The timing of what we thought it was based on when we thought they were 70 is different, but everything is exactly the same. He will not complete his first term. And now we have, and go watch this video for more because it was awesome. The Sooooo said a couple things that he had planned on talking about when he went to this conference in August of 2017. But he said when he got there on stage, the Lord told him 10 minutes before going on stage, tell them now if they fail to support him and to stand for their president, pray for him and so forth, along those lines, that they would go into their captivity sooner. They wouldn't get their minimum, their allotted 4 years or their grace, 4 years of grace that they were given. He had said if you did support him and you were strong and you stood behind your president as the church as a whole in America, you would get your 4 years of grace and 4 more. If you failed, but you kind of did all right, you would get your 4 years, which would be at the end of his first term, and then you would go into your captivity. He planned on speaking of those two things, but 10 minutes before going on stage, he said the Lord appeared to him and said, and if they fail, and then later he said, again, a Freudian slip, I don't know. He said, and when you fail, you will go into your captivity right away. Meaning what? We knew it already. We've been talking about it for 7 months, that Trump will not complete his first term because judgment has been determined. And then Sooooo did a video in July of 2019, and in the visitation in July when he went to America, he said he went up and saw, he was there among the determinate council up in heaven. And the one angel, or the one speaking beside him, one of them, Moses, said, explained to him what was going on. And that judgment has been determined. See? We already understood this, and look at what Abbas said. If Trump does not complete his term, someone else will come. Darn right, someone else will come. Nobody we want. Maybe somebody these guys want, though. All right? Interesting stuff, man. It was awesome. So, from here, I wanted to show this as well. How we had talked about, when I was telling you earlier, there was this one here. That was the one we were just looking at. And how I said, sometimes when we talk about a teaching and in the beginning, it seems like, oh my goodness, Lord, is this possible? How am I going to explain this to people? How am I going to show that this one here that I did, this one here, let's see what year this was. Let's see what time this was. There, see, May 11th, not 2018 like I was maybe thinking, but 2018. So in May 2018, I did this video called The Most Important End Time Video You'll Ever Watch. I still kind of believe it was, even at this time, in a portion of sense, right? In a way. And then I built on it more in the next video. And why was it so important? It was the revelation that at the end of the 6 years of seals, to start the 7th, the Lord is returning on Mount Zion. It is not his feet down. It is his coming on Zion that is going to freak people out. All right? There'll be a gathering to him after much destruction and fighting and war. He'll come at the end of the 6th seal, at the end of 6 years, and it's going to be, I couldn't imagine what it would look like. Imagine if you were living on the earth during the time of seals, this tribulation that's about to begin. And you've endured all these things, and you see whatever this is going to look like coming down from heaven. The mountain carved without hand, the place prepared that Jesus went to go and prepare, that where I go and prepare a place for you, that where I return, I may receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be always. And where is it? In John chapter 14. We've talked about it many times. You see, this, when I started talking about this, when I first did this video, I was praying like, Lord, oh no. They already don't want to believe the 14 years, the 2 sets of 7, who the Gospels are speaking to. They're saying you're crazy. And now as we keep going and we're pushing through all this, regardless of what people say, now it comes to, what? You're coming on the mountain? It's not Messiah just coming, but the Lord God is there, the one who sits on the throne? Yep. That was exactly what was coming, right? Remember? The end of the 6th seal. The end of the 6th seal. Hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne. And this one who sits on the throne isn't Jesus. He's not on the throne yet. All right. He's on the right hand of the Father. This is the Father. Hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. All right. And then we went into Zechariah, and part of the revelation came because why? Zechariah has 14 chapters. They're 14 years of events playing out. You're going to see how this ties into what we're going to get into with the 40 days as well. We have 7 years, of which right now we're in that portion of time of 70 years in Zechariah chapter 1. Zechariah chapter 1 is speaking of Judah, so understand that. We talked about it many times. Hosea has 14 chapters as well. The only 2 books with 14 chapters, they both represent 14 years. One from the church side, one from the Judah side. And what do we see in chapter 8? 7 years are gone. How do we understand the 70th year that we've been talking about so often? Here's one of them right here. When you fasted and mourned in the 5th and the 7th month, those 70 years you did it for. But you didn't do it in the 71st, 72nd, 73rd. This is 7 years later. This is the 7th year of rest, saying when you did these things. See, for 70 years you did it, and that was it. And when does it say? When Jerusalem was inhabited, was in prosperity, when they inhabited, past tense, the South Plain. See, it's all past tense. When, those, everything's past tense. But in chapter 1, it says these 70 years, and then affliction came. Okay? We know this. I'm not spending all my time on this. I'm just trying to make the point with the mountain. We get to chapter 8, which is the beginning now of trumpets. And what does it say? Thus saith the Lord of hosts. I was jealous for Zion with great jealousy, and I was jealous for her with fury. Thus saith the Lord, I am returned unto Zion and will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth, the mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain. The Lord has returned on Mount Zion with the Lamb. And what are they doing? Let your hands be strong. You in these days that will what? Rebuild the temple, the city and the streets. Because before these days, there was no man to work nor animal, because there was no peace. to him that went out, because the affliction. I had set every neighbor against himself. This is the seals. He's saying there was nobody to build it for 7 years because I set everybody against his neighbor. Peace was removed from the earth. And so what do we have? The Lord on Zion. And then it made sense now when we go to Revelation 14 and we see the Lamb standing on Mount Zion with the 144,000 about to go out and do their thing of ministering. And then it makes sense when we go into Daniel chapter 7. And in Daniel chapter 7, it's talking about the 4 beasts and how that 4th one comes and he's going to do all these things. And then it says until the and then it was going on until the Ancient of Days did come. All right, till the thrones were cast down and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose hair white as snow, and who's before him? The thousands of thousands ministering unto him, and the 10,000 times 10,000 that stood before him. Those are the ones from Revelation chapter 5. You see, that's the Lord God coming. The Lord God coming. And then who comes to him? And then one like the Son of Man came in the clouds of heaven. So you think because it says one like the Son of Man that it wasn't the Son of Man? Of course it was the Son of Man. He came in the clouds of heaven and came to the Ancient of Days. And he was brought near to him. So the Lord Jesus is being brought to the Father. And dominion and kingdom was given to him. From where? The mountain. Mount Zion. See, the escape happens. Then bewilderment for everybody who's left on the earth. Right? It'll be like a snare upon them all. Then they're going to start to think to make war, neighbor against neighbor, kingdom against kingdom. Then it's the time of seals, these things that will be seen and these signs and wonders and so forth. And then an innumerable multitude shall gather together, as you saw, desiring to conquer him. But he shall stand on the top of Mount Zion, and Zion will come to be made manifest to all people, prepared and built, as you saw, a mountain carved without hands. So now there's going to be a battle against them, which he's going to whoop them, of course. And then it says, and as for you, seeing him gather another multitude that was peaceable, this is the rapture group, these are the 10 tribes which were led away into the captivity in the days of King Hosea. Again, referring to what? Hosea, those from the book of Hosea. All right, the church time. Guys, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's so awesome. All right, and that's exactly, you saw in Revelation 14. Look at John 14 for those that are newer. I'm not spending a lot of time on this. I'm just showing you. What does Jesus say in John 14? John lays out in the mystery of John, the end times is in it. And this is where he says, I go to my Father's place, I go to prepare a place for you, and when I come again, I'll receive you unto myself. This is that same receiving on Mount Zion, where those will be gathered to him peaceably after. So you see, doing this video, I was like, Lord, I see it, I understand it. But now for anybody new that comes in, here we are almost 2 years later, and it's part of our conversation now, isn't it? You see, we're no longer saying, oh my God, oh my goodness, is this really part of it? Is the Lord coming like this first? No. It's all built into the understanding. We understand it now. We're not sitting here like, oh my goodness, but for new people, they're wondering, how on earth did this group of Ministry Revealed get to this point in their thinking? What on earth is going on? The first thing you need to do is watch this video right here. Number 1 video that everybody must watch. The second video I recommend after that is the differences in the truth. And the third video I recommend after that is a summary, if you will, of some of the bigger revelations that have come here and revealed many others from it. All right? But that mountain was one of them as well. And so, guys, remind yourself that when we're feeling bummed, and believe me, I feel it sometimes too. Believe me. But understand, we've been revealed these things. We're not playing around. It's not kind of. I didn't leave my business and being in 600 stores because I just felt like it. You get it? I was called to do this. Unbeknownst to me, though. I just started going, and then I understood, and I kept understanding, and I just kept doing it. Guys, it's true. These things are true. Do we have the perfect date and time of everything? No. Do we know the seasons and years? Absolutely. Absolutely. We've proven it front to back. And so why am I saying this in relation to the mountain and how incredibly awesome it was to say these things that we're talking about now? Because this is a big deal, this one here. This video is a big deal, but it's not for the faint of heart. Right? And then we talked about it a little bit, I think, in this one as well, just touched on it, but it was in this one. What was the big deal in this one? Well, it says Jesus will be raised again from the dead. Now, how is that possible? Or how about we've been told that Jesus died once and for all, right? Once for all. Not according to Scripture. And again, this isn't to put the fear into people, but for those who are maybe lacking in some of the understanding of things that have been revealed here, you need to go watch those other videos that we're talking about, at least those videos first, to understand what this is talking about. To understand the chapters to years and what it means, that Hebrews with the 13 chapters. What it means, how when we say that the Lord returns after 13 years, feet down on the Mount of Olives. Yes, there's the escape where he's here for 40 days, which we'll talk about. Yes, he returns on Mount Zion. And then he's cut off after that middle of trumpets. But he will return after the total 7 of seals, 3.5 years of trumpets, 2.5 years with Satan. You have to watch some of these videos to understand this stuff. But when you do and you take that time, it's undeniable. And you'll see when, and the reason I'm bringing this up, and I showed that part with the mountain, is because there's a lot of talk in this in the comments. There's a lot of talk in the forum about it. Is this something that affects us? No. This does not affect our salvation, guys. Not at all. But it's a salvation for Judah. That's the issue. All right? It is not an issue for the church. It is not an issue for Israel. Okay? It's not an issue for the Gentiles. It's an issue that is for the time of Judah. All right? And it is quite straightforward to understand, because Jesus came for the lost tribes, right? For the lost sheep. So he came for the 10 lost tribes. He said it. And when there was rejection, what happened? It was turned to also include the Gentiles. So if he came for the Gentiles and for the lost sheep, who didn't he come for? He didn't come for God's people. Judah. What about Judah? You see, right now, what does it say everywhere? All through, it says it in, is it Matthew 10, Mark's, maybe it's opposite, Matthew 16, and in Mark 10, it's in Isaiah 53, it's in Hebrews 9. All over the place, it says he died, was crucified, died, and resurrected, and all of those things for many. For many. All throughout, everywhere, it says for many. But we've been told it's for all. You see? Now, why doesn't the church teach it more accurately? Probably not to put too much worry or concern. Right? Because people say, oh my goodness, salvation isn't. No. What we're doing here is not all for us, guys. I pray that every single person listening, every single person, these 4,440 some odd people that are subscribers of Ministry Revealed and their families, or that watch Ministry Revealed and study Ministry Revealed who aren't even registered or signed up, I pray for each and every one and their families that we would all be found accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. All of us. So then what is this for? Oh, we don't plan on being here for the seal, so what are we studying it for? We're not going to be here for the trumpets. What are we studying it for? To understand him better. All of his word is him. Other churches teach salvation. Other churches teach whatever. This ministry is a revealing of end time understanding. That's what we teach. And more than a third of the book, probably more like half or more of it, is end times. And it's been built into it the whole time, and most never knew it. Virtually none ever knew it, to the extent that it's been revealed here. Okay? So what seems like what is going on here might just be like that mountain. Wow, and this is unbelievable. You're crazy. This can't be. To, oh, it's just part of the teaching now. We understand it. It just gets built in. See? So we need to take these things with a studying grain of salt, right? We keep seeking it as we keep going. We didn't have everything right at the beginning of starting Ministry Revealed. It was a process that as we kept seeking and as I kept going and going, the Spirit would lead and comments would come in and I'd look at this and I'd look at that and you guys would send something and then I'd keep digging and studying and doing my own as well. And it was a process. It was a process. All right? So guys, just understand we're in this process. Okay? And we're coming close to the end of this portion, and whether the Lord God, whether the Lord chooses any of us here at Ministry Revealed to stay and to work, whether they're going to be teachers or prophets or whatever, I don't believe any of us truly know it yet. There might be some that have received words, but I can't sit here and tell you what they were or if it's true. I don't know. I know I am to teach the end time understanding, the truth of these revelations. And that's what I'm doing. And as crazy as something might seem at first or a little bit off, it usually ends up not being too crazy and it won't be too far off. Okay? It's always been built. The entire ministry was built on the 70th. All right? And we're here. It is coming to an end. And we're going to touch on some of those things now. This is something that we were talking about in the forum in relation to 40 days. It's a question that's come up quite a bit and that we've been talking about quite a bit as well. Many, we talk about the 40 days. We're one of the only ministries out there that understands there's a 40 days that comes first. We're one of the only Christian ministries that understands there's a 40 days with the Son of Man first. And outside of us, the only other ones that believe there's a 40 days coming are the Muslims. Isn't that interesting? I'm telling you, for those who haven't looked at the 40 days to look up Dajjal, go look up the Wikipedia for Dajjal, who the Muslims call Antichrist for the 40 days. They say he's going to do the things that Jesus did. He's going to be able to raise, this is what it says. He'll be able to raise people. He'll raise people from the dead. He'll have crops grow and animals come up and he's going to be able to stop the sun. And they think this is the Antichrist. Hello. If he could raise people from the dead and he can stop the sun. You see, we know, we've been talking about here, many will be fooled by that. That's why Jesus told us, one of the ones we're going to get into, that's why Jesus told us, he will be rejected by this generation. Okay? So, what is it with this 40 days now that we've been really talking about lately in the comments and so forth? Well, what it is is there's two reference points for the 40 days. Okay, we've shown it a number of times. Let me show you right here. Okay, we've gone through this before. We've shown like how Psalms 18:19, Genesis 7 into Genesis 8. We've shown John, see chapter 7 into chapter 8. So see chapter 8 of John in the 21 years. This is the 21 years of John. Chapter 8 is right at the beginning time frame of trumpets. Of seals. Okay, it's the beginning of 14 years. In Genesis chapter 8, it's the beginning of those types and shadows that we have, that we talked about already in the 14 years. Okay, and so what's another one? Hosea chapter 1, 14 years, but chapter 1 of Hosea and chapter 8 of John, and even chapter 7 and into chapter 8 of Genesis show us, watch this, show us that the bride portion, and in fact, let me give you the understanding for John. You'll see in Luke's discourse. So remember, for those that are newer, I said go watch the two foundations first. You must understand that the truth is Luke, Mark, Matthew, not Matthew, Mark, Luke. Okay? Think of it, the last will be first and the first will be last. And John gives us the timeline, and in that format speaks to the, you can say the 144,000, but it really gives us the timeline. And so Luke is speaking to the bride, Mark is speaking to the sleeping left behind church, and Matthew is speaking to Judah. So when we come here in Luke and we're looking at Luke's discourse, when we get to the end of Luke's discourse, it's way different than Matthew and Mark's. Okay, first of all, for those that are newer, you don't see anything of that day and hour knows no man. Okay, you don't see that here. You only see that in Mark and Matthew, and they're speaking at different times as well. One end of seals, one's to the end of trumpets, because people say that most watchers of end times know that the whole church isn't necessary. Most of them, not all, that's for sure. Well, don't believe the whole church is going right away, that there's a sleeping church that's left behind. Well, if the sleeping church is being left behind and they're going to be saved later, how are they going to all be saved when it's the time of Jacob's trouble? Interesting, right? And that's part of the understanding. When you understand seals is the tribulation for the church time, to get that group to wake up, like we're saying, I'm going to show you later with what Bob Jones was talking about, and how trumpets is Jacob's trouble, and why the confusion has come and been around for so many decades is because everybody's been taught from Matthew, when Matthew has nothing to do with us. Now, let me qualify that, because people say, oh, you're saying Matthew has nothing to do with us, none of the book of Matthew we should be reading. No. Of course, we can all glean some understanding and so forth from all scripture. But in relation to who's speaking to who when, in relation to the understanding that is revealed here, which is the end of days, Matthew has nothing to do with us. All right? But everybody who's teaching on end times outside of Ministry Revealed is teaching at least 90% or more from Matthew. And so when you're teaching and learning only from Matthew, what happens? Everything you understand is from the perspective of Judah and end times. So you're saying, so you understand that what comes first? They're going to build the temple for 3.5 years. There's going to be a peace deal made. And in the middle of that, after that 3.5 years, they say the Antichrist is going to come. And then at the end of those 3.5, there's going to be a covenant made again. Or something along those lines. Well, that's pretty much right. That's what's going to happen at the end of seals. But the one who makes the covenant at the beginning of trumpets is the Lord. It's Messiah on Zion, like I just showed you. He's the one that's going to make the covenant. And he's the one that's going to break it midway through it, about 3.5 years in. Because Satan is now coming down, not the Antichrist. The Antichrist time is during the time of seals. You see, why then is Jesus not working in seals? Why is he working in trumpets? Are you following this now? Why is he working in trumpets and not seals? Why is he there for 3.5 years rebuilding the city and the streets and the temple and so forth? Because he's fulfilling his time for Judah now. You get it? Okay? So when we go back now into Luke, who's speaking to the bride, we see that it doesn't say, but of this day and hour. We see it's one of our favorites here, right? Don't be caught unawares. This is that suddenly from 1 Thessalonians. It'll be a snare on the whole earth. The whole earth, all right, will be caught off guard. But those of us who are watching, we're watching and praying always that we may be found accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. Okay, what are they doing? This group is going to escape all these things and stand before the Son of Man. And who is the bride? Well, the Gentile bride is first, right? Who's the Gentile bride? Well, they're the Gentiles, right? They're the dogs, the adulterers, they're always referenced like that in many cases. Even Ruth, when she says, Master, why have you taken this interest in me, a stranger? The word stranger means adulteress. All right, so it's a reference. And they stand before the Son of Man. Well, we saw in that piece that I showed you with the mountain that when the Lord God returns, there's the what? There's the thousands of thousands ministering to him, and the 10,000 times 10,000 standing before him. And when we go to Revelation 5, you see those thousands of thousands that are there. And then you see the 10,000 times 10,000 who are standing before him as well. Okay? The 10,000 times 10,000 are the Gentile portion, are the Gentile bride that have escaped all these things. And the thousands of thousands are the 144,000 being taken out who will return with the Lord on Mount Zion later. Okay, that's why we see them in Revelation 14. On Mount Zion with the Lamb, and they're about to go out and do their thing. Now, this ties in as well to this Bob Jones stuff that I talked about a while back. And I'll show it in a little bit here too after I go into this. Bob Jones had said that, I'll just touch on it here real briefly. Bob Jones had said that he died. He wasn't supposed to die, but a demon ended up killing him. But the Lord had told him that he wouldn't die, but the demon killed him. And while he was in heaven, he saw that he said 2% were in his line going into heaven. Okay? In the moment that he died, only about 2% were in the line going into heaven, and he was able to turn and look back, and that's how he understood. And he saw that it was about 98% were going down to hell. That should be a scary thought for everybody. That means everybody who's ever lived. This is the understanding of it. Everybody who's ever lived since Christ's death and resurrection, only 2% are in heaven. Yep. Sucks, doesn't it? But that's why the seals, this grace time of this fire purifying is coming up. So that billion will come in. With some dying for it, some will still be alive at the rapture. Okay? The rapture is different from the escape. The rapture is at the end of seals. So I understood before having seen that talk with Bob Jones. I had done a video months prior explaining that the 10,000 times 10,000 who are referred to as the Gentiles, they are the 10,000 times 10,000. That's 100 million. And if it's thousands of thousands, not times 1,000, that would be 1,000,000. It would be too many. So why is it thousands of thousands? Because the thousands of thousands is a reference to the 144,000. So if they're a reference to the 144,000, then I, in this assumption, said, okay, the 100 million is probably a reference of 144 million. And then I did a calculation. I said, okay, what's about 2% of 8 billion people on earth? And you know what it equaled? I think it was 1.9% or 1.8 or something like that. About 2% of 8 billion equaled 144 million. My jaw hit the floor. Literally, I was like, what is going on? And so that's the reference of those who are going to be accounted worthy to escape all these things. All right? The ones who are left behind, the sleeping church, there's a lot. There's a lot. And you're going to see this reference that we're going to get to with what Bob Jones says and why he said when the Chiefs won, know that this what's it called? Let me just bring it up real quick. Which is why he said revival. Okay? Which is why he said that portion of revival would then soon break out afterwards. Okay? Doesn't mean all of it right away, but it'll break out. Well, when is this incredible revival going to break out? It's going to break out during the tribulation. People will realize what they believe they've missed. People will realize how everything's changed and this supernatural power that'll be upon the earth greater than it was in the days of the apostles, of which we're going to get into as well. Okay? So what do we see next here? This is all different than Matthew and Mark, but listen to what we see next. And he came early in the morning and abode in the mount that is called Olives, and all the people came to him early in the morning to hear him in the temple. Okay, to him in the temple to hear him. When we go to John, we see John chapter 8. Now remember, we're talking about this in relation to the 40 days. And here it is. So Luke 21, at the end of Luke 21, his discourse, it goes into Luke's own words. And he tells us Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, went and abode in the Mount of Olives, and everybody came to him early in the morning. Here we are in John chapter 8 with 14 chapters to go, which we have revealed numerous times equals the 14 years. It's hidden. The mystery is in it of the 14 years, the Lord returning after 13, and the 14th year when it's all over. So what do we see here is the same as the end of Luke 21's discourse. And early in the morning, he came again to the temple, and all the people came unto him, and they sat, and he taught them. And then what happens? They bring a woman taken in adultery. So what? A Gentile bride is what's happening, is being brought to him. And they're complaining about her, and they want to stone her. And who is without sin cast the first stone? We've talked about these things before. I'm making a point in the 40 days, you'll see. And then what do we see? And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. So the woman now standing in the midst, standing before the Lord. Well, what do we see in Luke 21? Watch and pray that you be found accounted worthy to escape all these things and to stand before the Son of Man. Who is that referencing in Luke to stand, be found accounted worthy? The bride. Who? The adulterous woman standing in the midst of the Son. All right? It's over and over and over again. We've spoken about this. So now when we go to Hosea, look at this. When we go to Hosea's 14 chapters, for the Gentile portion, for the church portion, at the beginning of Hosea, at the beginning of the 14 years, we see the beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, go take unto you a wife of whoredom. Go get your Gentile bride. So now what do we see? We see the same thing coming again. At the beginning of the 14 years, go get your Gentile bride. John chapter 8, the beginning of 14 years, the Gentile bride is brought before him. So the question is, all right, what's maybe another one? Oh, let me show you Genesis. Genesis is like the book of John. John starts in the beginning. Genesis 1 starts in the beginning. We have the 40 days. This is an interesting part. You see, the 40 days, I'm not going to get into this except to say the story of the ark has two stories built into it. Okay, we haven't really gone down that road too much, but there are two stories built into the story of the ark. One is relating to the first one, which is referenced in Luke that we'll talk about, and the second one is referenced in Matthew. Okay, so there are two references even within the story of Genesis 7 and 8 of them getting into the ark, in particular 7 in the beginning of 8 of them getting into the ark and its referencing. Okay, that maybe will be for another video, but there are two stories built into the one, and they both relate to the end time. One to when the bride goes, and the second one to when the Lord returns and how long they've been in the ark and when they'll get in and so forth. But what do we see? We see and in the self same day, where to go? Rain came upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and in the self same day they entered into the ark. Into 2 by 2, and they went into the ark, and the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bare up. So see, in chapter 7 here, this is where it gets interesting. In chapter 7, we see them getting into the ark. Guys, for those who have been wanting to understand this a bit more, this gets really interesting. I don't even know if I'm going to have enough time to get into all the other stuff. But this gets really interesting, because when we saw it in Hosea, when we see it in John, both of those things where we see the bride at the beginning of the 14 years, all right? This is what people have been asking. Is it possible that the 40 days that we keep talking about are actually part of the beginning of the 14 years? Is it possible that the white horse rider is the time of the 40 days? And even maybe into the 50th. Okay, maybe the red horse rider time is really the time of the lion first. You know, and the dove going out. And then it says that, because then in the red horse rider, it says peace is removed from the earth. So is it possible that, you know, the lion, the bear, and the leopard, are they all going out at the red horse, and that the white horse is really the 40 days and the 40 to 50 days, and that it's part at the beginning of the 14 years? Now, that's a very valid question. And why is it a valid question? Because when we look, first of all, just looking at the white horse rider, the description of the white horse rider, it would tend to maybe lean in that direction, right? So it's something that, believe me, I have bounced back and forth on these things. And the reason I was showing you John and how John chapter 8 is the bride being brought to Jesus at the beginning of 14 years, and Hosea with 14 chapters at the chapter 1 at the beginning of 14 years, it might suggest that the bride is here, and the 40 days while Messiah is here, that the bride would go at the beginning of the 40 days or at the beginning of the 14 years. And then the Lord as the Son of Man will be here for those 40 days, as we've explained many times. So what we're saying is the 40 days part from the beginning, boom. So right when the 14 years is about to start, the bride escapes and the 40 days begins. Okay? And that we're talking about now, we're talking about the bride being taken out at the beginning, because Luke 21 said to escape all these things. Okay? So we're not talking about whether the bride might be taken out at the end of 40 days. We're just sticking with it at the beginning of 40 days. Okay? So the bride is taken out right at the beginning of the 14 years. Let's say, for example, day 1, boom, bride is taken out, and then the Lord is here for 40 days. Okay? That's a scenario that we're looking at. And how is it maybe possible? Well, like I said, John and Hosea is maybe leaning in that way and looking at the description of the events and so forth of the white horse rider. It looks like it's possible, and then all of the enemies are the time of the red horse rider. Okay? And we even see the dove being taken out, because the dove will come, empower them, and then go. So those who are chosen to work. So it seems like it's possible. However, let me show you some key things of which Genesis here is part of. There's two very important pieces that are now coming up. And that is in Luke chapter 17, we have in Jesus's words, okay, Luke 17 starting in we can say 24, but we know this is the last time he comes. We covered it many times. Starting in verse 25, he says, "But first must he suffer many things and be rejected of this generation." Then he says, "And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it also be in the days of the Son of Man." Well, what does this mean? He's telling us he's going to be rejected first of this final generation, of this generation. And he says, in his days, in the days of the Son of Man, which means the Son of Man has got to be here for this portion. He says it'll be as it was in the days of Noah, when they did marry, eat, and drink, until the day they entered into the ark and the flood came and destroyed everyone. So what's he talking about? This is the 40 days. He's giving us a reference of 40 days. Now, when we go to the story in Genesis, we see in Genesis chapter 7 is when they get into the ark. Okay? And this was a big deal. I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into it too much again. You know, and then we see the second time when he comes. It'll be like it was in the days of Lot. And the days of Lot, when he gets rescued, we see it starts in chapter 14 of Genesis. You see, all of these things equal the same time frame. That's what this form here is. All of these things within their chapters are speaking about a period of time based on one group of people's viewpoint. You can find this in the description box as well. And so when we have this here and we go to Genesis chapter 7, we see this is when they're in the ark. And what one are we looking for? We're particularly looking to the reference of this 40 days, not looking to the reference of the 40 days and 40 nights. Those 40 days and 40 nights are the reference. Like I said, Genesis and the story of the ark has two tie-ins. One is for Luke and one is for Matthew at the end, which is why it's also talked about in the book of Matthew. It's the 40 days and 40 nights that are the ones for Matthew. The one that references only as 40 days is the one speaking to Luke's group. Okay, so the 40 days begins what? Here it is. It's in the 7th chapter. So it's still kind of what? In the 7th year, right? Well, we're still in the 70th. So this leads me to believe that it's a portion of time before the 14 years begins. But when we come to chapter 8, look at this. We come to chapter 8, and what do we see? And God remembered them who were in the ark, right? Remembered them who were in the ark, and then here's our 40 days again. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made and sent forth the raven. This is the Antichrist being referenced here. Dusky hue. Why dusky hue? It's the color of the skin. It's Arab. All right? It's Arab. The Antichrist is Arab. Don't believe anybody telling you it's Trump or everybody else. We've broken it down many times. It is Arab. People confuse it. Why? Like I was saying earlier, because they put seals with trumpets and they don't understand it is two separate periods of time. All right, trumpets is Satan. That might deal with the Catholic Church, but the raven, the Antichrist raven, is an Arab, all right, for the time of seals. So what did we see? In chapter 7, they're entering the ark, and the 40 days are over early in chapter 8. So I think it was Ivan in the forum that brought something up. That is it possible that the 40 days aren't necessarily of complete 40 before the 14 years begins, but maybe it's a portion of time, and then maybe a portion of it goes into the 14 years. You know, looking at Genesis 8, it's a possibility. And why is Genesis so important in this understanding of chapters to the years? Because it is directly tied into what Jesus is saying in Luke 17. 100% directly tied in. And we've covered it in a number of videos. There's a video, I think, that talks about John. For those that want to understand that one, I'll show it. I'll just point it to you real quickly. It's the one relating to there. Or is it? This might be part of it here. Okay. Oh, here it is right here. Hidden end time story in the Gospel of John. And there's the other one. It's tied into the one with Genesis. And you understand that in the beginning, chapter 8, it's the bride. The bride is in the ark in 40 days. And in John, it's the bride brought now before him. And what happens? The 14 years begins. Right? You have 14 years. The raven Antichrist goes out, then the dove goes out, and then the dove is pulled back in, and you have what? 7 years beginning. You see, so now when we see this, what do I say? Well, the 40 days is over, then the raven goes out, the Antichrist spirit goes out, and the dove goes out, and then the dove is brought right back in. So when the Holy Ghost anoints those people with the absolute incredible supernatural power that has never before been seen in the history of the earth, that Jesus said, you will do greater than I did, that is what's going to happen when the 14 years begins, when the Holy Spirit gives them that power. And so what do we see after this talk about the dove portion and the raven, and when the 40 days are done? We see that the dove goes and leaves for 7 days, which is a reference of 7 years. The dove goes out again, plucks up the people for the rapture, and that's after the 6 years of seal, so it's in the 7th year of rest. The dove leaves again, and what do you see? 7 more days referred as 7 more years. So we got the 14 years. So what happened before the 14 years being referenced? The 40 days were before it. All right. So this is one, and it's a big one. And why do I see it as being maybe more important than the chapters to years of John and then the chapters to years of Hosea? Is because this is something that Jesus directly said himself, that his 40 days will be as when they got into the time of the ark. That point when it said, until they entered the ark. Okay. So I believe this direct reference is letting us know that it's before the 14 years began. And I'll show you the other reference. The other reference we have is in Luke 11. And for those that are newer, when you understand Luke is speaking to the bride, Mark is speaking to the sleeping church, Matthew speaking to Judah, you understand that the story in Luke about Jonah is only talking about the 40 days when he went into Nineveh. And when they ask for a sign in Mark's gospel, Jesus says no sign is given unto you, and he gets into the ship and he leaves. But when you read it in Matthew's gospel, it talks about the 3 days when he was in the belly of the fish. So why are all three of them different? Why not all the stories told about the same one? Because they're speaking to different people at different times. And so when we're reading this here in Luke, we see, starting in Luke 29, let's go to 30. For as Jonah was a sign unto the Ninevites, so shall also the Son of Man be to this generation. Didn't we just read that in Luke 17? See, so shall the Son of Man be to this generation. So what was Jonah unto Nineveh? He walked in and he proclaimed he was the 40-day warning, wasn't he? Well, the Son of Man, Jesus here is saying the Son of Man will be the same thing as Jonah was. And that's before what? The Queen of the South will rise up in the judgment. So when does the judgment begin? After the 40 days. When Jonah went into Nineveh, the judgment wasn't to be released until after the 40 days. You see, so this is where I was saying I got to leave it up to you guys to to figure out which way you might see this going. Is it completely before the 40 days, the 14 years begins? Is it at the beginning of the 14 years? Well, Jesus, I lean more to before the 14 years, simply because of the two parts. One here, where it's Jesus's words saying, and it's before the judgment. And the other place he said that it'll be as Noah was. It also was 40 days before the 14 years began. So this is why now we say, well, okay, this looks like it's causing a little bit of confusion here. Because if we're looking at it for this 40 days, and if Israel turns 71 truly on March 10th, 11th, and we go back, well, then that meant by January in this time frame was the 40 days. Yet the bride's still here. Nothing's changed except the peace deal was announced right in that time frame, which was interesting. You see, very interesting stuff, but we didn't have our 40 days of the Son of Man yet. So now we're saying we're scratching our heads, right? Because we know that in 1949, Israel had their elections in January. They had their first meeting on February 14th, but then David Ben-Gurion, the prime minister, stepped into office and they dissolved the temporary government, which was called the provisional government, on March 10th, 1949. And on May 15th, 1948, after they declared the nation, is when they set up this provisional government. So if this is really the time of when they had dissolved the temporary government and they were now officially a nation, a people, and a government, well, this is the 71-year time frame, right in here. And the scriptures don't say they get to turn 71. It says these 70 years. So the question is, now what? Well, here's part of the question, and I'm going a little bit further. Well, I guess I can just touch on this anyways. Just to say, well, guys, what if we look at this a little bit more? Okay? When did Israel have their elections last year? You see, Netanyahu, and guys, I'm just putting this out there, okay? We know that there's this 71 year on March 10th, 11th time frame. However, in 1948, when they had their nation, they were living there, they had a people. You see, they didn't have officially a government, but they were still all moving there, they were living there, they were doing things, they were setting things up, you know. So they were still there. So when you see this, you have to remember the way it was in the beginning from 48 into 49. They were under a temporary government. Well, Netanyahu was supposed to have elections in December last year, moved it up to April because of the things coming against him, thinking, oh, if I do it earlier, I'll win. Well, he decides to hold the elections, or it was decided to hold them on April 9th of 2019. Now, did that mean that Netanyahu, did that mean that when they had the elections on the 9th, that from that day there was no government? Nope, that's not what it means. That's not what it means. You see, Benjamin Netanyahu won. He won. Ever so slightly. You see that? Netanyahu won. And every election in Israel is the same. You need 61 seats to form a majority, but nobody ever gets the 61 seats on their own. Okay? You need majority of the 120. Nobody ever does it on their own. They always need to form a coalition. And for the last almost 70 years, they formed coalitions every single time. But this time they didn't. And so when Benjamin Netanyahu still won on April 9th, it wasn't elections and no government yet. It was still, he was elected because he won, but now he's given 28 days to form a coalition. That's their law. And after 28 days, if he still can't form a coalition, the president of Israel gives 14 more days. So he was given those 42 days total, and he could not form the 61 seats that he needed. Okay, he had a total of 35, and he was working with all of these people to get more, and he couldn't do it. So at that point, which equaled May 21st, May 21st of last year, from that point forward, they have not had a government. All right. Now, yes, you can say that they're still operating. Yeah, I get that. Well, they were doing the same thing in 1948 to 1949. All right. They were still doing the exact same thing. So now from May 21st of 2019, they were now under a provisional government, just like they were on May 15th, 1948. Okay? So now, what's going on? Is it possible, and I'm just, like I said, I'm just throwing this out there. Is it possible that what's happening is that there's like a pause going on? Because they're in the exact same format they were from 1948 to 1949. So is it possible that it hasn't quite come yet? Well, it is possible. And what was interesting is that Netanyahu held the elections on April 9th. But this year, look what April 9th equals. Passover. Passover. April 9th, 1 year later, equals Passover. Now, why is this something to make us scratch our heads and say, what is going on here? Is it possible it's in hold? Because look what, guys, I'm just putting this out there. I got to keep saying that, all right? They're going to have their elections on April 2nd. When they have their elections on April 2nd, if that time still comes, all right? Again, we're just throwing this stuff out there as we're doing this teaching on these other things. I'm going to finish this up real quick. In relation to the date here, okay? Not a date, but this time frame. On March 2nd, they hold their elections. There will be somebody who will win by at least a little bit, like there always has been. And when this happens, they're going to be given 28 days and 14 days to form a coalition. If they do that, if they take that full time, March 2nd, 2020, plus the 42 days brings them to April 13th, 2020. So this is the furthest out that they can now stand up and say, boom, last minute, right to the last day, they formed a coalition. If they do that, what would that bring us to in this time frame? Kind of brings us to resurrection, doesn't it? Isn't that kind of like the resurrection time frame? Like 3.5 days later, like Luke 24 says, and early in the morning, you remember that? And they came unto the sepulchre, right? Now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came. Remember, Jesus was gone, and then he comes to them, and they're saying, what's wrong with you? Don't you know what happened? Are you a stranger here? Right? That they were saying that as they were walking with them. Were you a stranger here? Don't you know what happened? Right? And what happened? They tell them that this is the third day since it happened. And now Jesus is there walking with them. Right? Jesus is now there walking with them. He's spending that 40 days now with those that he's chosen. He's walking around and he's done what? Signs and wonders, isn't he? He's doing signs and wonders. Is it possible that because they've been under a provisional government since May 21st of last year. Is it possible that they end up holding these elections and they use up most of that time? But before, I told you, they're not going to actually get a winner, by the way. All right, there will not be another government. They're going to be attacked before that. Okay, but is it possible? Is it possible that it's this time frame right in here somewhere, that it's actually going to replay this type and shadow for us again? Remember, we've said it many times, and so have the scriptures, that there's nothing new under the sun. We've talked about Luke 24 going into Acts 1 and into Acts 2, that these are the events that are going to play out again. Now, did I think that it was going to take us all the way through to Passover again, and he was going to just have a grand old time playing it out at Passover again on us? I didn't think it was going to take, I still am not sure it's going to go to Passover. But I just thought, man, isn't that interesting? Because we're talking about these events replaying for us almost like we should have already understood it. That it shouldn't be a surprise, right? Is that possible? Because now you're going to see, as we go into this stuff with Bob's Word, as we look into a couple of other things and we go into Bob's Word, you're going to see how this could tie in, because what it brings us to is Acts chapter 2, which is what Bob was referring to when he said this apostolic time that was coming. It's something we've been talking about for a while. And now here we are coming into this range. And this range is 1 year from when they had those elections. And it ties in to them not having had a government. So it could be like a type of pause, if you will. I'm not saying it was. I'm saying it appears it could be. We know the Jews are understanding this is coming in their 70th year. We showed that video of the rabbis, didn't we? They know it's coming in the 70th year. Well, what about this guy? Miracle worker rabbi predicts Trump's peace deal won't succeed because Messiah will come first. From January 28th, from this guy. Okay, you guys can go look this up for yourselves. Okay, this guy right here. He spoke to him. He's alive, this guy. Okay? Because Messiah will come first. And then we have our other buddy that we talked about many times. Many people have spoken about him. And this has to do with Yitzhak Kaduri. All right? This guy. He died, I think, in 2008 or something like that. 2006 or 2008. He was 108 years old, remember? He's the one that found Messiah. He said it was Messiah. Jesus has already come. He is the Messiah. All right? And what did he say? He's the one that said, when you have elections, okay, this is what he was asked. I'll show it to you on this one. He was asked, it seemed contradictory. So it said, one day he was taking questions and someone asked when Moshiach, Messiah, would arrive and whether there would be signs that would precede his arrival. And the rabbi answered, that guy I just showed you, when there will be elections, but there will be no government. And they thought it was very confusing. It seemed contradictory. How could there be elections but no government? If there are elections, there will be government. It's simply how things work. And they never understood the prophecy until what? Until it happens. And what did he say? What will be the signs preceding that Messiah is coming? Right? When would it be that Messiah is come? That he would arrive? He said when there will be elections and no government. So we got both these guys, and this one found Messiah. He found Messiah and he left it in that cryptic note to be opened a year after his death. What else did we have? Well, we know it's 70 years, right? We know it had to be 70 years because that's what the scriptures have told us. We've talked about it. We've showed it many, many times. Here we are in the 70th year, pause or no pause. We understand that the rabbis know 70th year, some sort of destruction is coming to them. What else did we know? We knew there had to be a peace deal. There had to be a peace deal. A peace deal was part of it. And what happened January 28th? Boom, that peace deal we've been waiting for decades has now been revealed. And we had, of course, our 13th year to 14th year, and we had all of these things that have been revealed to us. Right? And I told you about that 2% with Bob Jones. Okay? Here's that video I was telling you about, or that I wanted to tell you about with the Bob Jones one. You guys can go watch it for yourself. You see how old this one is. Am I looking at the right spot? Yeah, see, I keep forgetting how old or far down this is. This one right here. Okay, this one is literally right around the corner from being 2 years old now. Okay, this was May 11th, 2018. So this is maybe, yeah, in March. Oh, so it's really, really close to being 2 years old. And this was about Bob Jones and the talking of that 2% I was telling you about. Okay, so I've understood some of these things from Bob Jones, and I understood some of his words. So I do think it's important that we pay attention and try to understand what he was saying. Okay, now I'm going to play this video. It's only 4 minutes. I'll play just about most of it because I want you to hear what he's mentioning, what he's getting at when he's talking about this time frame. Okay, and what he's talking about will come in this time frame, and we'll tie it into what he said about the chiefs and the word that I'm pulling out from that word that he gave and why it's important. And it has nothing to do with the chiefs, but it was a marker for us. All right, watch this.
Many years ago, the Lord told me that the year 2020 we begin to come into the rest.
So in 2020, we'll begin to come into the rest. Okay, that's part of it. And he's talking with Morning Star Ministries, all right? And, well, let's listen for a bit.
And that coming into that rest is us resting in Him and Him resting in us. So I think between this time and the 100-year prophecy, 2010, 2020 will be the time of not faith in God, but the faith of God. So I think this is what she's saying to you. Morning Star and you are getting ready to come into that place where you have that word from God and the faith of God to deliver it. So I see the next 10 years is one of the most awesome times of your lives. I also see the harvest beginning in that time that will never end. So that harvest that will begin there will be over 1 billion youth coming to the Lord. And now, everything I'm seeing is preparation for that now. Youth without number. And youth will come to where they see the faith of God. I had a vision the other day, and I was on a train, so was you. And so were many people you know. And I asked the conductor, what is this train? He said, it's the glory train.
The train, I love it.
He gave me a capsule, a time capsule. And I said, does it open now? He said, no. But you got it. It'll open in 3 years.
So see, he's saying in 3 years, and he says later, as he's talking about it, he says in 3 to 4 years. So they were late 2009, talking about 2010 to 2020. But this capsule, this thing that he received in the vision on the glory train, said that you can open it in 3 to 4 years. He says 3 here, but he says 3 to 4 later. So that in that 3 to 4 year time frame. Well, what time frame was that, guys? The end of 2012 to the early portion of 2013. What time was that? The last 7 years. Remember, Genesis said in the beginning, and John chapter 1 said in the beginning. And what is John chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 1? They're the beginning of the 21 years. What 21 years? Jacob and worked 7 years and then got his first bride and then got the other one, but had to work 7 more years. And at the end, she's officially his after he puts in that time, right? In the 14 years. Now he's receiving them all to himself. He can go where he wants. And then what did he do? He worked 6 more years for the cattle. And at the end of the 6 years, there was a covenant made between him and his father-in-law. It's the same story playing out. It's 21 years is the big picture, of which the 7 I referred to sometimes as easy. It's not meaning everybody's life was easy, but compared to the tribulation, it will be easy. But, and again, not for everybody, I understand that. But it's these 7 years. When did they begin? They began in that late 2012 to 2013 time frame. They were the last 7 years. And this is what Bob Jones was given to tell him, that this capsule that can open in 3 years, that 3 to 4 years, it's the same time frame for when it would begin. Now, do we see and think everything's begun? No, it doesn't really seem like it, but we've talked about these things before, haven't we? How mystics and other people and seers past 2012, the end of 2012, they couldn't see anything going in any other direction but one anymore. Right? We've talked about that before. It's not because we're following everything these guys are doing. It's because we're getting understanding based on what we're seeing here in Scripture, and these things are confirming it that these guys are telling us. Okay? But Bob Jones was a prophet. Did he have everything right? No, because sometimes prophets, they don't get everything. They don't know everything. Just like sooooo, they don't know everything. They're given this here and they're given that there, and they're filling in stuff along the way. Okay? So watch this. Let's keep going.
So you're being prepared for the glory of God to come. And many years ago, in the early 70s, I saw the glory of God often. And when he told me he was removing it, I asked him to remove me, and he said no. He said, I would live to see the glory of God again, and it would never end. So I think in this next 10 years, your preparation is to bring in the glory of God. And that train is already started. The Lord has already got his people on it. It's going to come to a place of unity. And that time capsule will open. I think there's going to be a strange time capsule. Because I think time was invented for man, not man for time.
See, it's interesting that he says that when that capsule opens, it's something to relate with time. Right? What he just said. Again, very interesting. I won't play the rest of it. You guys can go if you want to watch it. But it was very interesting because what did we know by these other mystics and so forth, those that can see, those that people that were part of those government programs that could see forward? Can't remember that term. Anyways, that point when he's talking about when that capsule can open is relating to time, and how time, when we talk to these about these in other videos, it all came into one. And no matter how they tried to move in their seeing forward in that government program, trying to see forward, they could not see anything different after the end of 2012. And it's interesting that this is like a capsule he was given, and that it can open at that time, and it related to time and so forth. And from there, what does he talk about? We know that he talked about to 2020. Okay, that's what was being spoken about now. To 2020, and there would be this time that would bring, it would be the time of the starting, is what it is, of bringing in 1 billion people. Okay, he said 1 billion youth. Why is it so high? What on earth would cause 1 billion people to come to Christ? You following? What on earth would cause 1 billion people to suddenly change for Christ? The refining, the incredible power being revealed with the Lord here during 40 days, with the escape of 100 million plus people having vanished, chaos raining down on the earth, and the Lord here doing incredible signs and wonders. That is what's going to happen. That's going to start changing people and start waking them up. And in those power and in that glory during those 40 days, when the Messiah leaves and these people will be fleeing to find safety, see, fleeing for protection because of what's coming, if they remain in the Lord and they remain obedient in the Lord and loving the Lord, they'll be protected during that time. And the Holy Spirit will come, the Holy Ghost will come and give them, not all of them, will give a group of people, apostles, as we've said, and disciples, chosen by the Lord while he's here for 40 days. And I believe the 144,000 in their renewed bodies with the Lord, doing their events, and they're leaving though with the Lord at the end of 40 days. But they will all have empowered these people and done signs and wonders to just such supernatural extent that these people will believe. Now, 1 billion at the start? No, it will grow. It will grow. But he's saying that what? At 2020 is that time frame. And now what happened? Here we are talking about all of these things that we've understood to this point now in 2020 that have been revealed to us from Scripture in understanding of the end time books opening, of the Gospels being revealed in the end time understanding, who they're speaking to, the 2 sets of 7, when the Lord will come, escape, rapture, return. All of these things proved out over and over and over again. And they all come to a culmination at the end of the 70th year, in that time frame. And what did we have? Those things that I told you about, those rabbis, the prophecies, the peace deal released. And then this old prophecy that comes about Bob Jones. And what was it? Bob Jones told me at least 10 times, when the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, you will know that revival is about to come. You will know that revival is about to come. Now, most people, do they have any clue what this is talking about? Most people just cast it off, oh, whatever. Even Christians, even many that knew him, they might believe a revival is coming, but they have no understanding how it means it. This revival of 1 billion that was connected to him saying when he was alive there that you just saw, relating to the time of 2020, and this billion youth on its way coming to the Christ, will come during the time of fire. That is how it will come. That is how it will come. And what happened? We just had the Super Bowl, and in 50 years, this team has never been back to the Super Bowl. They've never, it wasn't just about, 50-50, it's either this team or that team. No, it was about everything I put in the community post on YouTube. It wasn't just about them being there. It was about the fact of those things that I said. The 70th year, the peace plan's been revealed. It's the 13 to 14 years left to the Lord returning, feet down. All of these things equal this time. And now on top of that, we have a prophecy from Bob from almost 20 years ago, where he said it over and over again. When you see the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, no, revival is about to come. What did he say after? Because God is raising up his apostolic chiefs. This is the word. His apostolic chiefs. Why is this the big deal? It was all about timing. It was just another another sheet of icing, another spread of icing on the cake. That's what it was. That's what it was. And what does it mean, this apostolic time? Okay, let me show you what I was getting at. This is something we've been talking about for a long time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in it. I'm almost done, but I'm going to touch on it real quick for you. And in fact, let me show you something. Somebody had sent me this. There's a rock band, I guess an old school rock band called Kansas. And their album from 1977 is called Point of No Return. 1977. What year are we still in? Because a year goes from spring to spring. We're still in 2019. So we're 19 and what? 7 still to go. Isn't that interesting? And it's called, they named their album Point of No Return. It's a dragon surrounding the sea, a ship falling off it, almost like the ark, if you will, a dark sun or moon, whatever it is, an eclipse of some sort. It's pretty wild. We don't go to these types of things much. You know what I mean? I put it out there for, well, look at that, right? And they're called Kansas on top of it. And here we are talking about stuff with Kansas. Interesting. Interesting is what I'm saying. Okay. Now let me show you. Look at this. When we know this 40 days, we've talked about this from the end, going from the end of Luke chapter 24, right? He comes into the midst of the 11, and he sits and he eats with them. It's the only one that he sits and eats with, right? Remember, we did a whole video on that as well. He opens unto them their understanding of the laws of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms, which is what this ministry is all about. Which is why we can't help but think maybe there's some being chosen from this ministry for the time coming. And here he is. Oh, this is what he's saying. See, raised from the dead, and it's the third day. So there's repentance from sin, and then he ascends up. His 40 days are over. He told them, hey, go hang out, go to where the others are, and wait with them in the upper room. You see, and what happened? Here's our 40 days again. Remember, not 40 days and 40 nights. This one is just simply 40 days. I'm going to change that color. It's just simply 40 days, just like the reference we were talking about over in Genesis. We're not looking for the 40 days and 40 nights here. We're looking for the 40 days only. And here it is. Okay? So when these 40 days were over, what did he do in those 40 days? He showed them many infallible proofs, right? With signs and wonders. And then he tells them, now you're going to receive power when the Holy Ghost is going to come upon you. So you guys go and wait in the upper room with the rest. And what does it happen? What does it say? And he was taken up and received in a cloud, a single cloud. Now, why is this important? Going back to John 21, when they see the Lord at the end of what we've talked about here in Luke 21's 40 days, Jerusalem will then be compassed about right towards the end of the 40 days. But before they get destroyed, the 40 days will have passed, but they will have been surrounded at the end of the 40 days. And what do we see? And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud, singular. Why is it important? Because Matthew and Mark says clouds. And Matthew and Mark are speaking about the time of rapture at the end of the sixth seal and the time of his return feet down. See, two different times. So who's seeing him and who's being received in the cloud there? Those 144,000 who had their supernatural bodies that were working with him. They're now leaving with him to go and be in the third heaven where the the Gentile bride is. Okay, because they escaped all these things. This one, it's the 144,000 that were with him. And who are these here? From Acts chapter 1 to Acts chapter 2, that he's saying, hey, you guys go and wait. Right? You guys go into Galilee and you go wait with them that are in the upper room. So they make their way back. And who's in the upper room? The apostles. The apostles and some of the women that were with them. Right? They were there. Who? the apostles. What did Bob Jones say? He said that it would be a time of revival that would come. Not right away, but that is about to come. For God is raising up his apostolic chiefs, his apostles. He is raising up his apostles. Okay? The apostles have disciples. Remember John? John had disciples, and two of them, when they realized it was Jesus, they went and they followed the Lord. So what's happening with these apostles? This apostolic period of time that will come? Well, we know it came at what? Pentecost. Pentecost it came. So if we're looking at it repeating, is it possible that the Lord is literally going to be repeating it on the time frame? 3 days later time frame? He fulfills those 40 days, so the bride would escape maybe in this time frame. He fulfills the 40 days. And after he fulfills the 40 days, this doesn't include the 3 days, by the way. So after he fulfills the 40 days, boom, the Holy Spirit now in this time frame for whatever Shavuot is, Pentecost, when that comes. Well, is it possible that if we were all ready to understand these things, and because of when they had their elections and there's no government, that they would still have had their elections and there's no government? That even when they hold their elections, if we get to that point and they hold their elections on March 2nd, there's still no official winner unless he can form a coalition. So before the coalition is formed, it's Passover. The escape of the bride comes, the Lord returns, fulfills those 40 days as he says it was for Noah, and the 40 days as it was for Jonah, and the 40 days as the type and shadow when he returned the first time after his death and resurrection. See what I'm saying? Is this what's going on? Because what do we know comes next? Where are we? Come on. Here it is. When we see what? You see, and on, this is when now the apostles have received it and those disciples. But when they go out and they start preaching and doing their things and teaching and doing all these things and baptizing the people, they're going to receive what? The Spirit, capital S. Capital S is a big deal. It's the Holy Spirit that will come into them. But what? Remember, peace is taken out at the second seal, at the red horse rider. So if peace is removed from the earth, how are these people getting the Holy Spirit? Through the apostles and the disciples that have received those powers. And so what's going to happen? And I will show wonders in heaven above and signs in the earth beneath, blood, fire, vapors of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and notable day of the Lord. Look, notable day of the Lord. Memorable day of the Lord. See it only one time, but you see where it comes from? Where does it come from? That is become visible. Or where the word also comes from the definition of getting the understanding, is to appear. So to become visible, it's the same as saying appearing. When does the Lord appear? After the sun is turned into darkness and the moon to blood. When does the Lord appear? When have we been told the Lord would appear? Hide us from the face of him at the end, after the sixth seal, after the fire and brimstone of Lot. The face of him that sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. What did Jesus tell us in Luke 17 for that second time he would come? What does he say? He says, so likewise also as it was in the days of Lot, which we said is after the sixth seal, that sixth seal time frame. And what does it say? Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. When is he revealed? The sixth seal, after the sixth seal time frame. And so what is Acts chapter 2 saying? These things and these powers and these indwelling things that they're going to get of the Holy Spirit are going to take place before the great and notable day, memorable day of his appearing. Look at this in verse 2:22, which also was related to the Kansas City football game. You men of Israel, hear these words, Jesus of Nazareth, a man approved by God among you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God did by him in the midst of you. And then him being brought to the determinate council. It's looking like this is the replay. Not it's looking like this is the replay. Do you understand? This is going to play out again. Nothing new under the sun. We all know those scriptures. You see, he's saying that these are the things that will happen in those end of days. In fact, watch this. Look at this. I should highlight that one. Acts 2:17. And it shall come to pass in the last days. You see, people have read this, and they say for the last 2,000 years we've been in the last days. No, that's not what it is. That's not what it's saying. It was for us to understand in the end of days. Why were we told this before? Because they didn't understand who the different books were speaking to, what the different times frames were to who and when. This is for what is coming. And how can we confirm it that it's relating to directly to the end of days? Because he tells us the sun being turned into darkness and the moon to blood. When does this happen? At the sixth seal. And right after, what is it? The day of his appearing. What is it? Daniel chapter 7. The Lord God coming, like we said earlier, and the Son being brought before him, and the kingdom's going to be given to him. And then he's got to fulfill that time now. Acts 2, all of this, it's coming again. And what is Joel 2? I said I wanted to do a video on this. It is not going to be today. But what do we understand from Joel 2? Joel 2 is not Acts 2. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, in my holy mountain. Remember we were saying earlier, this is why I was tying everything together. When is the holy mountain? The holy mountain comes at the end of seals. It's the beginning of trumpets, right? And he's talking about these events that will happen during trumpets. His army that will stand before the Lord. Do you know this army? I don't want to go down it all. I'll have to save it for when I do the Joel study, God willing. That this army that he's talking about is the army of the sixth seal in Revelation. The sixth trumpet. All right. So look, blow ye the trumpet in Zion, call a solemn assembly. Sanctify the people of the congregation, assemble the elders, them that suck the breast. Let the bridegroom go forth out of his chamber, and the bride out of her closet. Well, where do we see this reference? When is he coming? Remember Daniel, I just said it even a few minutes ago. Daniel chapter 7. The Lord God's coming, and the Son of Man is coming down in the clouds of heaven. And do you notice here it says clouds? Remember the first time I just said it was single cloud? When he comes the second time, which is the reference to Matthew's discourse, he's coming in the clouds. Do you understand the awesomeness of this, guys? The awesomeness of being able to discern the difference of why there's an S and no S? I remember telling that to my wife a couple of years ago in this, well, yeah, about 2 years ago now. And I was telling her and explaining these differences from an S and when there's no S and when there's a comma to the end. And she was like, what is going on with you? You don't remember what you had for breakfast and you can discern these things with S's and no S's? You barely can spell cloud. You know, it's awesome. It's awesome. And you see, this is when he's brought to the Father. When he's revealed, when he's what? Given dominion. And then you have this time coming again in Joel 2. And you shall know that I am in the midst of Israel. I am the Lord your God. There is no people that won't know, right? And then what does it say again? And the sun shall be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord. Why is this one different? Why is this the great and fearful and terrible day of the Lord? Because now he's telling us the story when it's at the end, what it's going to be like. Before the great and terrible day, when it's feet down on the Mount of Olives and he's returned. Because what happens at that day? Oh yeah, that's going to be a terrible day, all right. We've read Zechariah 14. Go read it again. For all those that came against them, their eyes will melt in their sockets, the tongues in their mouth, and so forth. That's the terrible day he's talking about. But see, in that time it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Zion and in Jerusalem now, you see, for now it's going to be in Zion and Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord has said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call, the left behind, the leftovers, see, the survivors. See, guys, this stuff is awesome. I hope you guys really enjoyed and focused in on this study. We covered a lot of ground, some great detail, connections to our season and time of now, wrapping it all in a bow. All right? This was awesome. I really enjoyed this today. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Take your time, guys. Go through it again and see these things for yourselves. You know, these things are just pretty much on the tip of my tongue. So I can keep going in these things, but take your time to understand them for yourselves, and especially those who are newer. All right, guys. I love you guys. God bless you. Please pray for us. Don't forget, if you can support us, please support. And check out our Facebook page. Uncle Jimmy has done some great things there. And please go to the website and the forum. See the great work Jimmy's done there. All of the videos as well are available on ministryrevealed.com, and there no apps are needed, nothing. You can just right click, you can click on a video, pause it, do a right click and say save as, and it'll download to your computer in a couple minutes and boom, you're done. You can save those things for yourself. And if anybody is looking for something to leave for family and friends or to give to people, you can email us as well, because we send out USBs, those little jump drives. We send them out all the time, and nobody has to pay for them. We will just send them out. That's part of the support that we get. And we send them out to whoever needs them, whatever they need, wherever you are around the world. We can send them directly to somebody you want to receive it, or we can send them to you however you want it. So you can just email us directly as well from the website or the ministryrevealed@gmail.com. All right, guys, I appreciate it. We love you. I pray this blesses you, and we'll talk to you again very soon. I love you guys. If you don't hear from me soon, we will see each other very soon. I love you guys. God bless you. Bye for now.